Hello and welcome to Thompson Bowling Arena at Food City Center. I'm Ryan Sylvia. This is Noah Taylor, and we are with VolReport.com on the Rivals Network. And as Tennessee takes its next step towards its regular season that begins in about a week, they hosted their exhibition with Indiana, a top 20 matchup. Obviously, an exhibition, so it doesn't count towards regular season kind of standings or anything like that. But both teams taking it pretty seriously.
Yeah.
I think we saw more players on both sides, and they'd probably both play if this was an actual game that actually counted, but it's not like this was the orange and white game or anything like that.
No.
It's two teams that are trying to win. At the end of the day, it's going to be an Indiana win, 66-62 over Tennessee. Kind of sluggish start to the game for both sides, and then Indiana pulls away at the end, largely in part to Tennessee's offense taking a major step back. Just one made field goal in the final 10 minutes of the game. I think it was 1 for 11 field goals down the stretch, 0 for their last 4. It wasn't pretty, and that's ultimately going to be the difference. How concerned are you, given that it's an exhibition, given everything that goes with it, but also that it is good competition, and your kind of first look at the team, how concerned are you with those offensive struggles?
Yeah, I not too much right now. I think obviously with what Tennessee was able to do last year with Dalton Connect, again in a very big exhibition game against a then top 5 Michigan State team on the road. Obviously that was a historic year for Tennessee offensively, so I think you maybe expected it to take a little bit of a step back. I know they went in the portal. I think they were intentional with getting guys like Chaz Lanier, getting some scores to kind of keep that offense playing really good. I wasn't too disappointed with maybe the shot selection so much as just sometimes there was a lot of possessions there where it just didn't fall. I mean, you think of one late. Ultimately, I guess it didn't matter because Tennessee just never took the lead again in the last 5 minutes. But Zakai had one down here, the 3 that this place was about to erupt. You talk about exhibition games. It definitely did feel like here in the last 5 minutes of that game when Indiana finally kind of reclaimed the lead there, it kind of had the feeling of a big-time, top 20 regular season game. And certainly I think the players that were out there were playing like that. But, yeah, I think that was an example of a shot not falling. Some of the shots at the rim, they didn't really have a ton of them. I thought some of those didn't fall as well. Again, I'm not too concerned with it right now. It's going to take till probably that Louisville game in the second game of the season for us to get maybe a better idea of this Tennessee team, I think. You start with Gardner Webb here in about a week or 8 days or so. But, yeah, I think given what Tennessee was able to do last year offensively, maybe it was good to come in here with some tampered expectations about what they were able to do.
Zakai Ziegler is going to be the leading scorer for Tennessee on the day with I believe it was 13 points, but it comes on 2 for 10 shooting every single shot coming from beyond the arc. He had 5 turnovers in the first half, but 0 in the second half, so a nice improvement there. And then he has 8 assists on the game. He's plus 5 on the floor. He plays 37 minutes of this exhibition, and he's plus 5 in those moments. In the 3 minutes he's off the floor, Tennessee's outscored by 9.
Yeah.
How important is Zakai Ziegler to this team? I mean, how big of a difference is it when he's off the floor, and how critical is that to keep him out of foul trouble, to keep him healthy? I mean, he goes down for even a week or two. That could be disastrous over that span. Just how important is he to this team?
It is, and it kind of feels that way. It feels like we've said this about him his entire career here, how big he is. And I think maybe even more so this year because you did have guys like a Dalton Connect that could take a game over for you. You had some veteran guys last year who played a lot of basketball here that you kind of trusted in those moments. You don't really have that so far right now. Jemai Mashak's a guy obviously that comes to mind that's played a lot. Obviously, he's going to give you on the defensive end. I think he had a couple of nice moments offensively tonight too. They're kind of late with some big shots. But yeah, I mean it's going to be important to keep Zakai Ziegler healthy and keep him in games. I know Rick Barnes said, kind of around that 9-minute mark when they kind of went with a lineup. He said you probably won't see a lot, but wanted to put them in kind of a tough situation to see how they handled it. That's the one where Zakai would set out at, and it kind of gave you an idea of how much this team needs him. But he's going to be massive, and I know, again, we've kind of said that about him the last 4 years, but I think even more so this year, it's going to be very important for him to stay out of foul trouble and for him to be on that floor to give Tennessee the best chance to win games.
You mentioned Chaz Lanier earlier as a guy that they brought in because they knew how well he could score the ball and thought, I don't think they ever expected to bring in someone that's going to replace Dalton Connect by himself, but could at least be a piece of the puzzle for this offense and carry a bit of that load. And he has a pretty poor game, I guess you could say. 10 points, 3 for 16 shooting from the field, 2 for 12 on 3-pointers. I think the green light, obviously, I mean, you look, he takes a shot that maybe at first you're like, oh, Rick's not going to like that. And then he goes, and then Rick doesn't seem very bothered by it. And I think that shows the confidence that they have in Chaz, and they've seen him do it in practices all off season. He did mention that the reason Chaz wasn't in the starting lineup is because he's missed some practice with an injury, and they kind of want to harp what you do in practice and what you put on film is going to determine who's going to play and who's going to start. So the nod did go to Jordan Gainey, but are you concerned? I guess similar question to the first one with just Chaz. Are you concerned about the shooting splits, or is it more those will eventually fall? They're not bad looks, and you kind of have to trust what Rick sees to put him in that lineup.
I'm going to lean, in an exhibition game, I'm going to lean more towards the fact, or lean more towards the shots just not falling for him tonight. And we've seen some guys come in here, that have. Tyreek Key kind of comes to mind. I know we talked about it during the game. Some guys that have come in here that played really well offensively somewhere else and kind of struggled. That never really manifested itself at this level. Time will tell with Chaz. Again, we'll learn more in the next couple of weeks about him and what he's able to do in a meaningful game in meaningful minutes. But I think too, like Rick Barnes, he talked about it in some of the preseason stuff we had with the media and even the media day about Chaz being kind of limited in practice. Maybe that kind of reared its head today with not being able to practice as much or go full speed, and then he's thrown out here in a game. Maybe that played a factor as well. But yeah, I'm going to lean right now towards that it's just exhibition, just not a good offensive day overall for Tennessee, and hopefully for Tennessee's sake we'll learn more about him coming up soon, because I got a very impressive and once again, tough non-conference schedule ahead.
What did you think about the play in the post today? Felix gets the start at center, and he, for the first half, has 0 fouls, and you're kind of looking at him, and he's playing a pretty good center over on Indiana, one that's kind of preseason highly looked at, and he has 0 fouls. He's not playing. I'm not going to act like he's playing incredible, but he was playing good basketball. He was playing good defense, and he was still physical without fouling. In the second half, he picks up 4 fouls into foul trouble, and he's able to get back on the floor down the stretch.
Yeah.
But it was different. How do you assess what he did? And the guys behind him, JP Estrella, Cade Phillips, and those guys.
Yeah, I think with Felix, there was just a couple sequences there, especially the block shots. I think he ended up with 4. May have had a couple more. He had the I think 2 goaltends in the game. But I mean, maybe you take those, because more often than not, you're just getting a block shot out of that instead of the goaltend. So I think he played incredibly well defensively early in the game. But you're right, the fouls were a little bit concerning there in the second half. Considering Tennessee struggled with that last year. Jonas Adu had some games that were really good, but then when he wasn't on, you weren't really able to rely on Tobe Awaka because he was getting, he all of a sudden he was in foul trouble early. So that's something certainly we'll have to clean up going forward. But I think a very bright spot for Tennessee in the post in that first half, like you mentioned. But JP, another guy that I think Tennessee's expecting a lot out of, played well as a freshman when he got in there. That Elite Eight, I think, is a memorable performance for Tennessee fans, and how he played against Zach Edey. He had a sequence there I was impressed with. I think he got a block shot as well in that first half. Blocked the inbounds pass, and that possession ended up being a shot clock violation for Indiana. So, we wrote about it on the site the other day after media day that he's a guy that was very intentional about wanting to get bigger, getting more physical, getting better as a defender. I think you saw that in the minutes he was out there. But again, Tennessee's going to expect a lot out of the post play for sure.
You can't read too far into the plus minuses. They're going to be telling in some regards, and in other areas they don't tell the full story. But I mean, JP Estrella, he plays 8 minutes and 39 seconds tonight and puts together a +8. So the team was playing well with him on the floor. I'm not going to say that he was the missing piece for this to be a blowout or something like that if he plays more, but I thought he did pretty solid as well. Anyone else on this team that stood out to you, whether positively or negatively?
I'll go with Jordan Gainey again, a guy that obviously gets the starting nod today and was a guy that came off the bench at times last year and, helped this team, gave the team a little bit of a jolt offensively. There was really nobody that was giving them a jolt offensively, it felt like, and not consistently anyway. But, he hits a few shots. I can't even remember exactly what he finished with in scoring. 12 points. So just behind Zakai. So, I mean, I think he had a solid game. And when Rick Barnes was asked about the question about Chaz Lanier and what the decision went into and why, Chaz didn't start over Jordan. And Rick went into that whole answer about practice and what shows up on film. They watch a lot of film after practice that determines who gets on the court. I know that was more of an answer about Chaz, but I think it's also telling about Jordan Gainey, too, that he, did well in practice, has done well, a guy that's, expected to take on a bigger role after coming in here as a transfer. I don't know what people expected, or even maybe this coaching staff expected out of him when he got here a year ago, but a guy that played well, was relied on down the stretch last year, and you've seen him start tonight. I think Tennessee's going to rely on him again in a similar role.
Two guys I'll touch on. Igor Milicic Jr. Thought he had a pretty good game.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to see a little bit more of him offensively, but he's pretty efficient. I think if you get 8 points on 3 for 7 shooting, I don't think you turn that down from Igor, who's probably going to be more of a role player this year for Tennessee. Maybe you'd like to see him hit on a 3, take another one, but I don't think that's bad by any means. And he also rebounded the ball really well. 8 total rebounds, 4 on offense, 4 on defense. So some mistakes. The turnover down the stretch game was kind of put away. Maybe you could see if he could work some magic in a bad decision to turn the ball over. And he had a couple maybe plays like that he wants back, but he showed effort on the defensive end too. There was times where he was kind of 1-on-2 in transition and he didn't shy away, almost got put on a poster, but at the end of the day, it's a defensive play that stops a bucket at the time. So I think you have to be pleased with what Igor gave you. What I don't want to say displeased with what Cam Carr gave, but there's more out there. So I don't really know. I don't want to say it was a bad game. I don't want to say that it's disappointing or negative, but it is a game that didn't live up to maybe the ceiling that we think, or the staff thinks, and members of the media think that he could reach because of what we've seen at practices, what we've seen in glimpses in games, and what Rick Barnes and the staff have said about him. So he plays just about 10 minutes, 0 for 3 from the field, all 3-pointers, grabs 2 rebounds, no assists, turns the ball over once, and doesn't score. So there's more out there for him, I guess. I'm not going to close the door on Cam Carr being a piece for this team. Rick Barnes said he needs to be a guy that can help them, especially on the offensive end. When you see a team missing this many shots, he's capable of making them. And he's young. He's just a sophomore. He's got plenty of room to grow, but maybe thought that in an exhibition like this, he could probably play a little bit more and probably be a little bit more of a contributor on the offensive end. But a lot of season to work with for him. He's expected to be a contributor in SEC play and against better teams. And also you have these out-of-conference opponents to kind of work on your stuff too. As you mentioned, Gardner-Webb to open things up. In 8 days from now, we'll have you covered up until then, and then also, of course, on game day, Lady Vols coverage as well. They get their exhibition going against Carson Newman on Thursday before their first season with new Lady Vols head coach Kim Caldwell. And then, of course, it's football season, so we have coverage all week leading up to another rivalry matchup, 3 straight for Tennessee. You go Florida, you go Alabama, you get a bye week, and you get Kentucky, maybe your 3 biggest rivals in football. And Tennessee gets them 3 in a row. Trying to complete the sweep, though, which is impressive for a Josh Heupel-led Tennessee team. He's done a good job, never lost to Kentucky. Now 2-2 against Alabama, undefeated at home. 2-2 against Florida, undefeated at home. So a good start for Josh Heupel against those. But we'll have you covered throughout the whole week for football, and then, of course, on game day as well. Links to everything you need is in the description. Thank you for watching.